Alright, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. It's your boy Deep Art, and we back with another video. We got a special video for y'all today. We have a special video that we want to talk about specifically regarding the process of transmitting neurons and commands throughout the body, right? So if I'm transmitting, commands from the prefrontal cortex, right? If voluntary actions, voluntary functioning comes from the information that I generate out of my prefrontal cortex, right? And these are my voluntary actions, right? They get transmitted from my prefrontal cortex to the cortispinal tract, right? Into the cortispinal tract, and this region, neurons get transmitted from neurotransmitters transmit information from the prefrontal cortex to the dendrites, to the neurons within the down to the cortispinal tract, right? And this is where signals are now being sent down here that I got from a voluntary signals that I got and transmitted from my prefrontal cortex, right? So I had a thought, right? Or I had information that I got signaled to my prefrontal cortex, or I generated an action or a command from my prefrontal cortex, and now I'm sending it down to, or now it's being sent down to the spinal, the cortispinal tract, right? And from the cortispinal tract, now the signals are being, whatever actions or commands that I sent from the prefrontal cortex are now being dispersed into the body, right, through the spinal tract now, right? So from the cortispinal tract, and the signals being sent throughout this region of the body, now is also being sent throughout the lower motor neurons, right? So the information or the signals that I got from my prefrontal cortex got sent down and transmitted to the cortispinal tract, right, region, right? And then those signals, after it got to the cortispinal tract, and it got converted here, it's now being converted to the lower motor neurons, which is going to affect how my body commits the actual action, right? Because now it's in my lower motor neurons, right? And then being transmitted to my lower, my functioning, right? Signals are being sent to my bodily functionings, right? So, and those bodily functions are being sent through to the effector muscles, right? So if these signals are being sent to the effector muscles, right, what information or signals generated certain chemicals that processed those effector muscles to, generate or move the way they move, right? So now, climbing up the ladder, the question is, what information or signals from the prefrontal cortex got sent, and can that be distracted, or can it be interfered with, right? So what got generated, from the prefrontal cortex? But even a better question is, what from the prefrontal cortex, what didn't get transmitted from the prefrontal cortex to reach the cortispinal tract? That's the real question, right? What didn't get sent to the cortispinal tract, right? Cortispinal tract being the region, obviously, in the spinal area, right? So what didn't get sent there, right, is the question, because the prefrontal cortex is majorly responsible for, of course, decision making, right? So if this be the case, right, and the prefrontal cortex is mostly known for decision making, when I experience something, or new information is gathered, what signals are being generated, or action, signals for actions are being generated, right? And then what signals are not being sent or not reaching, or they're not getting, they're not being received, right? The package is not being received. What information is not being received? What details are not being received by the cortispinal tract? And that's the question I want to ask, because if that information is not being received by the cortispinal tract, then what is really being sent to it, right? What is really being sent? What commands are really being sent throughout my body? You know what I'm saying? And that's the question I really want to ask. And like, what can impede on first off, my signaling, right? What could affect my brain to a point to where the prefrontal cortex is not even receiving the signals, or nor does it have the ability to, receive the signals that it needs to receive to generate proper signals? Obviously, first due to some sort of impairment, right? Due to some sort of impairment or some sort of impediment, right? Or dysfunction, right? That's the first question. And if it's dysfunctioning, then how is it going to? If it's dysfunctioning, then what is really being sent? You're sending impartial commands to the throughout the body, throughout your body. You know what I'm saying? Throughout your cortispinal tract, right? You're sending incomplete. It's like sending incomplete commands and signals to the rest of your body to try to enact out on things. No, your actions are not, or your performance is not, is incomplete. It's not full. Like it's an incomplete performance, right? It's a incomplete execution of an action. So if you get in front of a coach, if I be a coach, right, and I expect from an athlete certain performance, right, when I put them in a game of basketball, right, I expect certain output. And if you're moving off of impartial, impartial signaling and impartial commands from your own prefrontal cortex, then you're impartially giving me actions. Your actions, your execution is all impartial, right? So if that be the case, when I'm talking about sitting in front of somebody, having a conversation, or even generating ideas, or having a conversation about anything, right? I'm communication, right? In the aspect of communication in business, or in even trying to think, to be able to execute an idea, right? Even able to be able to think in order to complete a task, right? If I'm trying to think in order to complete a task, if my thoughts are impartial, if the information that I'm generating from my prefrontal cortex is not reaching, the dendrites, or the through the neurotransmitters that it needs to reach, then I'm sending impartial commands. Like, what am I really sending? What am I sending, throughout the rest of my body to actually try to enact on, right? You know what I'm saying? Because one, it's impartial. It's not all of the details of what I generated. You know what I'm saying? That's number one. All of the details of what I'm trying to do, or what the decision making from my own prefrontal cortex is coming up with, is one, either it's being impaired by the signals that it's sending due to some sort of impairment within the peripheral cortex, right? Or it could be because of just the signals themselves, getting there or whatever, and then not being able to properly transmit to the neurons, or through the neurotransmitters as it's supposed to, and reach the destination or the other neurons that it's supposed to reach. And if it doesn't reach those other neurons, what is really being sent, right? You're sending half information. You know what I'm saying? So if half information is being sent, what type of commands are you really sending throughout the rest of your body? You know what I'm saying? And in business, right? When you're trying to think and when you're trying to execute something or write down information or collect data, right? And transmit it or translate it to a specific outlet, how can you do that without proper, you know what I'm saying? How can you do that with some sort of, with partial information being sent? You know what I'm saying? With partial information being sent through the prefrontal cortex, right? And that's the question. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And what is replacing that information, right? If THC has the ability to insert itself into certain areas within the brain, you know what I'm saying, and block and intercept neurotransmitters, then if this be the case and it has the ability to block certain information from being sent and certain information just passing through, I mean, then it's like, okay, so partial information is being sent. One, what is that? What kind of effect is that having on the overall signals being sent? Right. What is the overall message being conceptualized as? One, and two, if that be the case, what happens if THC or marijuana impairs the prefrontal cortex altogether, like it does a lot of times, right? What would be the effect? You know what I'm saying? If it blocks the prefrontal cortex altogether, right? If it does that, then that means the signals being sent through the neurotransmission, through the neurotransmitter is already impaired, because the signals that was received, you know, to the prefrontal cortex for it to be able to generate commands is already, you know what I'm saying, interfered with, right? It's already effed up or interfered with, right? For better term, right? For cleaner terminologies, right? It's already impaired. So if that's the case, then from blocked signals generating from the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe is now being sent, right? Neurotransmitters are now being sent that are miscalculated. You know what I'm saying? So they're being sent to the body, and then being enacted out through, you know what I'm saying, some sort of effect through the effector muscles. So one, if this be the case, then there's no time where proper communication is being delivered. So it's a miscommunication happening, right? And so if there's a miscommunication, a few questions, man. So if there's a miscommunication happening, then then there you go, right? It's a miscommunication happening within the effector neurons, all the way up to the corticospinal tract, all the way up to the prefrontal cortex, right, or the frontal lobe, right? So all of these things are being blocked by THC. So if THC and these chemicals get in your system that have the ability to block off certain areas of the brain, they will block certain neurotransmitters from being able to reach, you know what I'm saying, their destination. So partial information is being sent throughout the synapses, or the information is impaired to begin with because it's been shut down by THC, right? So if this being the case, there is no form of communication that is properly being generated when THC is in your system or it was in your mental system, right? If it's up there, right? There's no proper line of communication happening, right? So if you get into the aspect of business, I'm going to say this point right here. So if you get into the aspect of business and trying to do, be an entrepreneur or trying to have business, you're already not even getting the full, you're already not even getting the full or being the best entrepreneur that you can be, or even half of it, because the communication line is messed up. And in entrepreneurship, communication is like 70% of successful business. You know what I'm saying? So 70%, if not more than 70%, really like 90, you know what I'm saying? Like 90, like 70 to like the vast majority of your business is already messed up, because communication is not being properly sent from or sent throughout, sent throughout your own brain, for you to be able to enact on decisions clearly. Let's be honest, communication is 90% of business. 90% of business is communication. You know what I'm saying? So if there's some sort of impediment within your mind, on this level, you can't really get into business, or you really can't do business with this stuff in your system, with THC in your system, right? And that just being the fact of it, right? So, of course, you could even, examples of it, like you have testimonies of people saying that when weed was out of their system, they was able to do business. You know what I'm saying? Nipsey Hussle, for example, right? Like, come on, bro. The dude is living in what, Slauson? Dude is living in LA and saying that he had to put down weed, you know what I'm saying, in order for him to do business. That's Nipsey Hussle saying that he's from LA, right? So that really goes to that testimony holds weight, because he's from LA, right? So that testimony holds that much weight in really saying how much of effect of THC and weed that it really has on your impairment in thinking in business, right? So I wanted to point that out, right? To really go into how important communication is as well. Like, communication is everything in business. You know what I'm saying? Everything in business, like, is communication and your ability to think. And if you can't properly generate or if you can't properly generate and process your own ideas, you have a serious problem in terms of trying to enact on those ideas and what to do, you know what I'm saying, when you're trying to conduct business, right? You have a serious problem. So, in short, I really want to barrel down on the impairment, you know what I'm saying, in people's functioning that comes from THC, and how half signals are being sent throughout the cortispinal tract and throughout other neurotransmitters throughout the body, making the communication line within people, making people not be able to properly communicate within their own selves and think, you know what I'm saying, right? And then be able to process information and think amongst other people, right? So communication is everything, you know what I'm saying? Everything, you know what I'm saying, in all shapes and forms. So if this sort of impairment is really happening, I'm coming back around in a second, right? So if this impairment is sort of happening, right, then the question is, if this sort of impairment is happening, you know what I'm saying, information is not being sent. Information is either being withheld or not even being properly or truthfully processed due to THC. So communication can't really happen, because any signal or execution that you send is already going to be a miscommunication from, you know what I'm saying, from improper or inadequate, loads of information and missing details, or just from the process of accumulating those signals to respond to is off anyway, right? And now that comes to the next point, the full circle point I wanted to really punch in and say, like, with communication, like, if you can't properly communicate, this is divide and conquer. You know what I'm saying? This is the true raw form of divide and conquer, is THC, is chemicals. You know what I'm saying? Drug chemicals, THC, and all of this other stuff is the rawest form of divide and conquer, and keep people in poverty, keep people poor, but also keep people dysfunctioning, keep people hating each other, keeping people want to fight each other, keeping people like all this other type of stuff, right? Due to improper sending and gathering of information, improper communication of information, right? Being sent and delivered to the synapses and throughout neurotransmitters. That's the rawest form of miscommunication that I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? And that is poverty in its rawest form. And that is a poverty mind state in its rawest form. And that is a person who can't enact on their ideas in the rawest form. That is all types of all this in the rawest form. People can understand each other. People can listen and you know what I'm saying, understand each other and empathize with each other, because everybody's people at the end of the day. But you can't empathize with somebody if the information being sent to the person is impartial. You can't even communicate and send those signals throughout the body, the subconscious stuff, right? Because of an improper signaling or of an improper sending or of information through neurotransmitters, right? One, and through an improper gathering or even receiving and reception of information, right? Due to impairment from some chemicals or THC that's blocking that, right? So all of this stuff really just plays a part back into psychological warfare and miscommunication, like all this other type of stuff, right? And it's defeating people on every level, from business to entrepreneurship to communication and to unity to peace. You know what I'm saying? The distress, and like all this is just from improper and incomplete signaling and sending of information. Like that's what all this shit is. So excuse my French, but that's what I really wanted to get to the bottom of and really talk about in this video. And this is what happens when improper information, you know what I'm saying? This is what happens with chemicals and with THC and with other stuff floating in the air, right? It impairs the thinking, right? And it's the communication that gets blown up. And that's the problem. That's the most important thing. Communication is everything, right? It don't matter how many push-ups I can do or how hard I can lift or how hard I can work out or how hard I can really go in anything. Because at the end of the day, if the information can't even be sent from my motor neurons to even be able to enact on those on those commands, I can't do shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's so everything is literally a communication thing at the end of the day, right? Communication is 90% of everything. It don't matter how many closed loop commands that I build, how many open loop commands that I train, or how many external cues that I give myself, or any of that stuff, due to the fact that if the information can't be properly, delivered, through neurotransmission, then it don't even matter. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, because it's impartial. It's impartial movement, impartial actions, it's impartial execution, impartial everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, and of course, it's important to build these things through sleep and through other things like that. But at the end of the day, how can you even sleep if your own if signals from your own prefrontal cortex and synapses can't even get you to sleep? You know what I'm saying? That's the problem with these chemicals and with THC and stuff, especially certain chemicals that are really that really have contain the properties or that purposely are created and built for the specific to put you in a state of impairment, right? You know what I'm saying? And in the wrong ways. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? That's my thing, right? And especially for anybody who's trying to get up or who's trying to do what they're trying to do or succeed, or you know what I'm saying, or someone who's trying to make it, you know what I'm saying? Someone who's trying to do something. I'm talking to that individual, right? Or individuals trying to do that, because that's everybody. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that with that type of stuff in your system because you can't enact on your own ideas. You know what I'm saying? You can't fully be aware of your surroundings in order to make the proper decisions you want to or would make in order to get you out of the situation that you're in, because neurotransmitters aren't properly sending the information and ideas that you have in your own head to the neurons that will allow you to be able to enact on them. You know what I'm saying? Or the impairment of the chemicals that you're inhaling or that you happen to be around are causing the prefrontal cortex to be impaired anyway, so that to a point to where that you can't even receive, or the cerebral cortex to the point to where you can't even receive the information that you need to receive in order to be able to, you know what I'm saying, make proper decisions that way. You receiving impartial information and then you enact on impartial information, or you send information that doesn't get there, and then information doesn't get there, so it becomes impartial information that then gets sent to whatever neuron, and then that's to help you enact on those commands, but they can't enact on those commands correctly because they're impartial now, right? So all this shit plays a part. You know what I'm saying? All this shit plays a part in your dysfunction, and this shit is literally mental, happening on an invisible level. You know what I'm saying? And it's just all this shit happening on a level that's invisible, that you'll never be able to catch unless you actually know what the hell you're looking for, and it's something that is so deadly and so powerful simply because you can't see it, and when you're already under it, there's nothing you can do. You know what I'm saying? Unless you just happen to be looking for it. You know what I'm saying? From a metacognitive state. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're just headhunting for from a metacognitive state, you'll never be able to find it, because it's playing with your brain. You know what I'm saying? And you're thinking. It's not necessarily hitting you on the outside or physical. It's playing with your own mind, and that's where you're at. You know what I'm saying? So you're not gonna be able to catch it. You know what I'm saying? And when you're already under it, you're already under it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's so hard to catch. And at the end of the day, if we're being really honest, THC and weed and all these, not just them, but all these other drugs is going to cause psychological warfare to go so far that it destroys the communication line between everybody, to a point to where, to a point to where everybody is under distress and under dysfunction, and nobody's catching it because everybody's under it. And that is that is the path that we're, you know what I'm saying, that the agenda or whatever, that's the path that we're really going on, unless we're able to catch it. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? Unless everybody becomes consciously aware of that, then that's where that's going to go, right? Businesses is going to start falling, collapsing, all other, you know what I'm saying, all other types of stuff is going to happen, because it's not even a matter of what you do or how disciplined you are to anything, or how much greatness or how many things you have accomplished, or, you know what I'm saying, none of that shit, bro, because none of that would even have the opportunity to get to the neurons, you know, that will allow you to be able to enact or that will execute those, you know what I'm saying, those, you know what I'm saying, execute those commands that have been stored, you know what I'm saying, within those spaces, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day, right? So that's the problem. And you know what I'm saying, that's what we really wanted to talk about. So we're gonna conclude this video right here, man. And you know, hopefully this video is you know, some sort of intellectual video for whomever needs to hear it, because at the end of the day, if these types of if this type of shit is really keeps going on, who's really gonna be able to think properly? I got some conspiracy theories for y'all, man. I hate to say the word conspiracy theories because I hate conspiracy theories, but this shit is so bad that I'm actually starting to come to the conclusion that conspiracy theories are actually important to deal with this type of shit. Because this shit is getting so bad to the point that it's the fact that it's this unchecked. That's what concerns me. What concerns me is how unchecked and how swept under the rug this shit really is in terms of its effect on people. Everybody would have been out of poverty and found the way up by now if it wasn't for this shit. You know what I'm saying? It's not, people ain't stupid. People, you know what I'm saying? People ain't stupid. You know what I'm saying? That's my thing. That's my thing. You know what I'm saying? People ain't dumb. So when we talk about health, taking care of your physical health, taking care of your mental health, man, like of course, the first important thing, of course, is people would say is what you put in your body. I'll say the first important thing is what you inhale. You know what I'm saying? What the spaces, not even what you inhale. Let me retract that. I would say the environment that you're in to begin with, the trees that you're around, the spores that the trees give off, right? The air that the trees give off is going to directly affect, you know what I'm saying, your functioning more than anything, right? That's going to have the biggest and most universal effect. That shit is going to have so much of an effect. It's almost like, and people don't even, you know, people won't even get this, right? But I'll say it like this, right? People call me, you know, crazy and say that's the stupidest shit ever, that trees, the air that you breathe is going to have the biggest effect on how you operate and how you move, or how well you can move. I'll put it like that, right? But at the end of the day, like if you've seen a brick wall, right, that was so vast that it covered the entirety of a country, right, or a civilization, how far would you have to be able to step back to realize what you was actually looking at? You couldn't. You know what I'm saying? And that's what excuse my French. And that's what you're dealing with when we talk about, you know, just, you know, land, right? The land that you're in the air that you're breathing. You know what I'm saying? From the spores that's coming off the trees, from the soil that it's, you know, the soil that it's on, and from the people that have been buried underneath that soil. Now that shit is so deep, right? And it may sound crazy, but at the end of the day, this, like, the air that you breathe is going to have an effect on how well you can really move. You know what I'm saying? Or how well you can really, the process of neurotransmission, you know what I'm saying? All this stuff, right? How well you can actually move is going to be, right? It's going to be from land first. Then it's going to be like your nutrition. Then it's going to be like the information you know and all that other shit. But like, yeah, that's why I say it's important. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like, I feel like this stuff right here is really is really the most unchecked thing that I have ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Is literally just drugs. And the funniest part, this is how you know it's this bad and this concerning, is the fact that everybody knows that in the 80s that psychological warfare was inducted through the crack epidemic and all the drugs that flooded Harlem in the 80s. Everybody knows this. But yet still somehow we wonder what the hell is happening with psychological warfare. We still wonder. That's how you know it's bad. Right? You know it's bad. Because we know what the hell this shit is, but yet we still can't get it right. You know what I'm saying? That's how you know this shit is deeper than what it really seems, right? Because it's a mental thing that's happening. You can't catch mental shit unless you're literally metacognitively looking for it, right? So that's going to conclude this video right here. This is a deep art video. Hopefully this video was good for, like I said, anybody who's trying to, enact on their ideas and trying to come up and trying to run a successful business, or just trying to live their life, you know what I'm saying, and enact on their ideas and stuff, right? Yeah, that's the important thing I got for you, is really just watching and checking for your mental, because at the end of the day, like at this point, we know like most people can do the things that they set out to do, right? Because why would you say that you can do something if you can't do it, right? Why would you set out to do something if you can't do it? Of course, you can do it, right? Obviously. But there's no way you'll be able to do or enact on any of the ideas that you're trying to enact on if the signals from your neurons and your neurotransmitters aren't being properly delivered or sent to the neurons that will help you to be able to execute those ideas. If it doesn't reach there, it's almost like training a command, you know what I'm saying, and then getting to a point to where, you know what I'm saying, you're under some sort of mental impairment, and the signals from the ideas, you can't even reach those trained neurons in order for you to be able to even enact and do the actions that you're trying to do, right? You can't even do them because the signals aren't, the commands aren't even being sent and being delivered to the neurons for you to like only in part, for you to be able to do them. And that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me, right? It's much like nowadays it's much more than just being able to enact on your ideas. You know what I'm saying? It's much more than just training. It's literally mentally having the ability to transmit neurons to your brain, or neurotransmitters to the right neurons so that you can do what you can do. You know what I'm saying? And that's literally the crazy thing. And it's a matter of being able to watch your mental, watch your intake, your nutrition, how much, how much you're eating, making sure you're getting all of your nutrients, making sure that, the air that you breathe is clean, the proper intake of water. All this stuff is important because this is going to help make sure, and calcium intake, all this stuff is going to help reinforce immunity. Intake is going to help you, build what you need in order for you to be able to enact on your ideas.